Next up, we have the new kid on the block, Askari Metals, and they only listed in July, so this is brand new news for all of you listening today. And joining me today is the Vice President of Geology and Exploration, Johan Lambrechts, to tell us the story. Johan, over to you.
Good afternoon, Kerry. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Yes, Askari, nice and new, listed in July, and there's the disclaimer. Please read it at your leisure. Project highlights also I'm going to skip over pretty briefly because we're going to talk about them as we go. Burracoppin, closest to Perth here, Horry, Callawa and Mt Maguire up in the north of WA, and then Springdale is our New South Wales tenement, which currently has a few restrictions preventing us from explore there as we would have liked. So that's just putting those projects into an image, a visual picture. You can see Springdale in New South Wales and the others here in the west. And we'll dive straight into Burracoppin, I think. So Burracoppin is the closest project we have here to Perth. It's only about 20 kilometres from Merredin, and it hosts several deep mine shafts. I visited the project and was blown away by how not big but deep the shafts were in the area. It was discovered by a farmer actually while he was tilling his fields, found some gold and decided it was more profitable to mine gold than to do wheat in the wheat belt. We started our first drilling program very soon after listing in the wettest July on record here in WA, and I tell you what, it was a muddy mess, but we got it done.
I heard, Johan, I heard you've had a shocker of a July. That's beautiful where I am over in Queensland, but yeah, yours been very wet. So has that stopped you doing the work?
No, 28 out of 31, I believe, rainy days in July. But no, we had to wait for small or short periods of time, but we got the rig in on the project and we got the job done. We completed 17 holes. We actually released this to the market this morning to say that the drilling's all done. Yeah, so very proud of that. Difficult conditions, but we got the job done. So the drilling was designed around historic mines, which you can see on the screen there. And we also tested historic drill intercepts, which you can see there as well. We wanted to make sure that we tested and validated the data set. And also we try to go slightly away from the existing, the existing workings to try and test for strike as well. Yeah, and we are very excited, as a matter of fact, to get the results back. Yeah,
how did you get this project? How did you come across it? Because it hasn't had much, I guess, modern day exploration on it. It was really done many, many decades ago. So how did Askari get their hands on it?
I don't know the exact details because this was before I joined Askari, but there was a deal struck between its then owners before listing and the Askari board to acquire the project when we listed. And I don't know where they got it, but somewhere along the lines, two people met and had a discussion about Burracoppin, struck a deal, and now it's ours.
And you've completed the drilling. And one of the challenges for all of you listening out there, one of the challenges at the moment is you get the samples to the lab and then it takes quite a while. So what's your time frame on getting those assays back?
Well, our time frame is tomorrow. We would love them back tomorrow, but the realistic time frame is probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
The labs are inundated. I mean, WA has been exploring in a very big way, and all the labs, doesn't really matter which one you call, the big corporate labs or the private ones, they're all very busy and they've all got roughly the same time frame. So 4 to 6 weeks, we put that in the announcement actually, just to let our investment community know that realistically, this is what you should be expecting.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty, so that's the first page of Burracoppin. The second one is very simply just photographs. That's our rig, and it looks nice and dry. This was on one of the 2 sunny days during July. Actually, you can see the date on this one. This was very early August, so maybe that's why the sun was shining. It wasn't July anymore. And then, of course, on the right there, the bulkies in the truck heading for the lab. It was a bit of a schlep getting them on the truck as well, by the way, I'll have you know.
Is it very far? What's the infrastructure like? If you could just explain to where Burracoppin is in relation to, just to give us a visual of where the asset is and how difficult or not it is to get to it.
So let me maybe yeah, that doesn't say much, but Burracoppin is there just to the east of Meriden, which is about, you can see Southern Cross there on the right of the left-hand image. That's about halfway, roughly, a little bit more between Kalgoorlie and Perth. It's about 3 hours out of Perth. And there is no infrastructure. So what we did is we took the samples and I loaded them on the back of the ute and brought them back to Perth where they were processed. Loaded them myself into those bulky bags and then called the truck driver to come and pick them up. There was a bit more involved, of course, but yeah, so there is no infrastructure. We didn't process the samples other than collecting them out in the field. We processed them in Perth.
Okay.
Yeah, because there is, I mean, it's just an open paddock. There's nothing else there. In Meriden and Burracoppin didn't have the appropriate infrastructure, and we chose to do it in Perth, actually. Yeah. So next one then is the Horry Copper Project. So this sits all the way up. You can see on the left-hand side of the image there, that little red triangle. So it's way up in the north, about 90 kilometers from Halls Creek. And it's been very lightly explored, if I can put it that way. You'll see in a minute, there's really been very, very minimal exploration. It's located along the same structural trend as the Halls Creek copper deposit from Kazali, and the Horry tenement has historic mines on it. The Horry Horse Copper, wouldn't call it a mine, the copper working, as well as the Western Lead Gold Mine. There isn't any production data that I could find on the Horry Horse, but the Western Lead produced 200 odd tons at about 11 grams. You'll see that on the next page. Very excited about this one because, as you can see there, we have only 16 rocks and 15 stream sediments on the tenement. That is the sum total of all exploration on this tenement. So it's pretty much not really been explored. There's been some mapping done in the late 70s, early 80s, I think. But that's it. So we're excited by, I mean, if you look at those results there, you know, we've got 54 and 41 gram a ton gold. We've got a 5.5% copper in a rock sample, and it's throughout the tenement, really. The Horry Horse, as you can see, the workings there are in the south, and then the gold workings of the Western Lead up there in the north. They're all structurally controlled, it seems. There is quartz veins associated with both of them. And as we announced on the 11th, we've got a professional mapper out there walking the ground as we speak. So he, yeah, he's been tasked with walking every centimeter of that. It's a very small license, but walking every centimeter of it and looking with all his experience. He's had lots and lots of experience. Identify areas that he thinks looks good, take a lot of rock samples, and then based on what he finds and what he maps, and of course the results of the rock samples, not only in terms of pure copper and gold, but also in terms of the trace elements that come with it, which might lead us into a direction as to what type of mineralization it is. But based on all of that, we'll then decide what the following exploration task will be. And then whatever that is, we'll get up there and work.
What is it that attracted you to this particular one? Because as you said, it's very underexplored, but why here?
It was another one of those tenements which I believe formed part of the same group that we bought Burracoppin from. And it was just a little unit sitting there with what seemed to be real exploration results. from the smallest number of samples. I mean, if you work out statistically what your strike rate is, if you've taken 15 samples and I've just listed 5 or 4 good results there, then you've given yourself a really good chance in terms of strike rate, because which means there must be something there. And we've got streams historically from the reports. There's been alluvial gold panned from every one of the creeks you can see on the satellite image there. Okay. So it's definitely got gold in the area. So I think we've given ourselves a really, really good chance of finding something here, because there is no doubt that there is gold and copper in them there hills, because we found them in the rocks and in the streams and everywhere. We've just got to see we've just got to go and find an ore body, I suppose. That's the main target, isn't it? Just
go find an ore body. It's very easy.
Let's just go and do that. So that's Horry. Then we move to Callawa, which is in the same general area, about 85 kilometers northeast of Marble Bar. It has also not received a lot of exploration in the past, but you can see there that there's a lot of, in this area, there's a lot of mining and exploration going on, mines and deposits having been found. But in 2006, 5 samples were collected from the Callawa project with an average of 11% copper. Then in 2008, a few more were collected, and they had, some of them were 9.4s, as you can see, 7.6 and 2.7% copper. And then there was a small air core program, which was drilled not in the same area as these copper samples, but to the south of it. And it identified some lead and zinc mineralization, which might be BHMS style. So on the same tenement, we've now got good quality or good amounts of copper in rock samples. And then we didn't, but then there were some holes drilled and identified a completely different style of mineralization, a completely different commodity package. So, I mean, that's great for us. The copper is also hosted, as you can see there, in quartz veins, generally structurally controlled. And the copper results are associated with gold results, which means we will very definitely explore for it, or we will include in our exploration framework the potential of porphyry copper mineralization. We'll see if it's there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there's it's got an association and we need to investigate it, which we will. We also plan to commence initial exploration on Callawa shortly, as we did with Horry. Looking forward to see the same gentleman. He'll go and walk the area for us and hopefully have some interesting maps and really good discussions about what he found.
He's like Forrest Gump. He just keeps walking.
Yeah. He does drive between the projects, but yes. I hope, I think at the Horry project, there is a lot of exposure for him to map, which should result in a really high quality map.
Oh, good.
And Callawa should have the same. Then we go to Mt Maguire. So this sits within the Pilbara Craton. It's prospective for gold, base metals, and iron ore. You can see on the right-hand image there, the Kalamazoo Resources tenement area, where the Mount Olympus mine is.
Yes, Kalamazoo presented this morning, so they'll be happy to see them represented up there.
Well, if you do good work, you deserve to be represented, don't you?
Yeah.
So gold and base metal mineralization generally associated with structurally controlled quartz veins, as was found there at Mount Olympus. So because we've got the same area, we are up against them. We've got the same sort of geology. The little bits of mineralization found is in the same type of sort of situation, if I can call it that. We're very excited to get onto this one as well. There we go. So a small amount of historic drilling was done on Mt Maguire. It identified anomalous gold zones, as you can see there. And some of the intersections, I just listed a handful: 1 meter at 6.7, 18 meters at 1.2, 2 meters at 12, etc., etc. But what you can see there is there's more than one intersection, which I think means something. And the second thing is they're all shallow. There's nothing there that's 100 or 200 meters deep, which means, well, firstly, it makes it accessible from an exploration potential. But we, as a company, certainly look further than that and look at it. We try to consider mining potential from the get-go, and it certainly makes it easier to build a financial model around a 20 meter, 30 meter deep deposit than it does around a 500 meter deep deposit. So to us, that's all. Yes.
Johan, sorry to interrupt you, but for those that don't understand what that means, you know, you've got your gold mineralization, 1 meter at 6.7, because we've got a moment of time here, just very quickly. Explain, are those good intersections? What do they mean in layman's terms?
Well, they're good. They're not brilliant. I mean, there are mines that mine ounce, very few mines that would mine 30 gram per ton ore bodies. But for an explorer, this is very, very good. The 1 meter at 6.7 shows me that there is a nugget there in terms of it's not all finely disseminated gold that just gives me, you know, 1, maybe 2 grams gold over a wider intersection, which means that if I did find an economic ore body, I'd be able to optimize it based on narrower zones of higher grade mineralization. The 18 meters at 1.16 that you see there, that is the opposite. So that's where you'll surely still have some nuggets in there, but that's more disseminated over a wider zone. That's beneficial if you want to do open cut mining, because of course it's easier for a big machine to attract or to extract an 80 meter wide zone than it is a 1 meter wide zone.
Right.
So when we do and then of course when you have 2 meters at 12 grams, that starts to make the ears prick, because that's economic. You can put an air legger on that. Although at 2 meters, you don't need to mine air leg. You can do other stuff. You can, you know, mine it conventionally. But the point is that those kinds of grades start looking really juicy. Our job is then to take the mineralized zone that we've found, and we've got to get volume into it, because without volume, it's difficult to generate a mine, because it's the volume that holds the ounces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got I think our team is exceptionally well versed and experienced to be able to look at this and to give ourselves and our investors, of course, the best opportunity to, if there is an ore body to be found, to turn it into something that's economic.
Right.
And then finally, I suppose within the region, there are a few small lead silver deposits. So we spoke about, we want to add value to ourselves and to our investors. So we're certainly not focused only on gold or only on copper. And if there is a good lead silver deposit, I mean, the last conference of yours that I listened to, silver was the main topic.
Yes.
And, you know, and there's a silver deposit, or there's a number of them, you know, on the doorstep of the Mt Maguire project. So we'll certainly be looking at that as well. We don't have blinkers on. We want to find whatever is a good commodity, and that'll add value to us and to our shareholders.
Okay, 2 minutes left.
All righty. So Springdale, I'll simply say that is in, I mean, everybody knows what's been going on in New South Wales in terms of porphyry coppers. So we are situated not too far from the town of Temora, lots of historic gold mines on the tenement, high grade, up to 40 grams from the production results from those mines, and only rudimentary exploration with one target that we could find that's been drilled, 3 meters at 2.9 gram gold from 66 meters deep. So in the next slide, so that is the tenement itself. It's recently been granted, by the way. It's now held by Askari as EL9217. And you can see all the workings there, and some of them have got production targets, but the grades are pretty good. And we've just got to get in there and do some proper not proper, but some modern exploration, because it hasn't seen much of that.
Right.
And we'll get into Springdale, I suppose, the moment the borders and so on allow us to cross and to go and do some exploration there. It's a bit difficult there specifically at this point in time, but we'll get there. We'll go and explore it as soon as we can.
So there's your challenges. There's a COVID challenge, that one.
Yes. And there we go. I think that's it.
Okay. All right. So
slide.
Just finish sharing, and I've got 20 seconds. Why should people invest in Askari right now? If you can finish doing your screen sharing.
All right. So there are the generic answers about a good board and great projects. We've already discussed all that. My answer is left field. I'm going to say we announced that we were going to drill, or we started drilling, and in that was a photograph of a bogged drill rig. And we got some flack for that picture. I'll say that you should, as Askari investors, read that differently. We took a drill rig during the wettest July on record. We put it on a tenement and we drilled a 17-hole program, having gotten that rig bogged multiple times and unbogged and moved it to the different sites. During those trying conditions, we got the drill program finished, and we now have assay results waited. So I think as an investor, you can invest in a company that's willing to take trying conditions and work hard through them.
We've run out of time. They're fully funded, ladies and gentlemen. They're just listed. They've got $5.5 million in the bank, so they're fully funded to get on with their exploration. Johan Lambrechts from Askari, thanks for joining me at the Virtual Gold Conference.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me, Kerry.